Blueline Bowhunters podcast starts right now.
Welcome, everybody, to the Blueline Bowhunters podcast. Today's podcast for Jared and I is very special. It's 2 years in the making. We almost hooked up 2022 in Louisville for this podcast, but today our guest here at the Great American Outdoor Show, the Traditions booth, which they were kind enough to let us do this here today. Our guest is the host and executive producer of his television show, Hunt Masters, on the Outdoor Channel, and the president of Wild Communications, LLC, Mr. Gregg Ritz.
Hey, thank you guys for the invitation. And yes, it's been a couple years coming. Hey, look what I got. Fresh off the uniform from last night.
Yep,
Thank you very much.
Had to get rid of one. And
that's fantastic.
Every time we have a hole in a shirt or something like that, I take the patch off for special occasions.
Right. So I'm sure there's a lot of stories behind this patch, right?
There's quite a few.
You have to retire it once a shirt's damaged. So, we can end up giving those out. Just don't show too many people.
Not to the thousands. Yeah.
And by the way, thank you guys for being on the front line and for serving and protecting us too.
We appreciate it.
I appreciate what you guys do. And by the way, everybody who follows them, their photography, cinematography, everything you guys do on social is phenomenal.
Thanks,
I
man.
appreciate it. Same with you, because that's how we initially found you.
I mean, just to start out, so you were the first outdoor person who acknowledged we existed. And for it to be you, it was like, oh my gosh, Gregg Ritz thinks that we're cool.
Yeah.
So we have to be cool, right? I mean, if he's saying it.
Hold on. You did cool things.
That's right. We're not necessarily cool.
That's very true. That's very true.
That's funny.
But no, we really appreciated you reached out to us and were like, hey, what you guys are doing are awesome. It really validated what we were doing, because this is such a tough industry to make it. And it's not like Jared and I are trying to become famous in the outdoor industry. We just love it so much and want to share what we do with our job.
Right.
And we fight a similar fight as the outdoor industry. You know, we're constantly getting critiqued and looked at. And put down. So that's what Jared and I are trying to share. So, but for you to reach out and validate, hey, what you guys are doing is pretty good work. It made everything to us.
Well, and that's one of the things that I try to do, and Wildcom tries to do, is find people doing great things, right? Who are elevating the bar, communicating the message, have the right ethics, right, to bring kids up through the sport, right? Whether they're your own or, get other people to aspire to be in the outdoors. And you guys set a really high bar, and you had a cool message, right?
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, man,
that's amazing.
Oh, this show isn't about us. I might start crying if we keep going. We only have you, so the show starts at 10. Gregg was kind enough to come in early and meet us here. We only have about an hour before there's thousands of people around us. So I want to pick your brain as much as I possibly can. The show Hunt Masters, phenomenal cinematography. Your guys' content's phenomenal. Your show's great. You're a phenomenal storyteller.
Oh, thank you.
I just love the stories that you share and how you bring other people in and you share their stories, and it's just really cool. We talked about what we might talk about today, and I'm like, well, we might end up on a tangent about stale cracker for 20 minutes.
Yeah, that would be a good one.
Off somewhere.
Which I was just telling Jared, he poured a bottle of Rip Van Winkle, which is like $2,000 down in his barrel last night, and I almost cried. But just the fact that you bring these people in and share their stories is really cool. And you're on, season 15 going into 16?
Yeah.
I mean, 16 years of doing it.
And that's just Hunt Master. So if you go in the way back time machine, this is my 22nd year just doing TV as a host, not being a part of, Real Trees, Monster Bucks, and some of the other things. So it's interesting to watch the industry change and how we communicate with the users out there and the people interested in what they do. I mean, when I started, social media didn't exist.
Right.
And now everybody has their phones, and we communicate what we do and what we see live in the tree stand.
Right. And that's an amazing thing all in itself, You have the power of that little device now, because I just picked up the iPhone 15 Pro.
Ooh.
And the footage that comes out of that, I'm like a little kid in a candy store now, because that's all new to me. And so I'm learning
Jared's our resident camera nerd.
Yeah, the log footage and stuff, and the power you have in your tree stand now to tell more effective stories visually.
Absolutely.
Right.
Plus audibly too.
In the palm of your hand.
Right.
You know what I mean? And probably whenever you first started the show, the cameras were how big?
They were huge, right? They were the old beta cams, and then they went to the digital beta cams, and it's crazy now. I mean, it's HD in your hand.
Yeah, right. Just wild.
4K.
Yep.
Right?
How do you beat it?
So the Well, go ahead.
No, I was just going to
I was
say.
going to say the ability to tell that story
Yeah.
with such a small device now is just.
But here's the big difference that's changed, right? When you think where we started and kind of where the industry's gone, is you can tell it in the moment.
Right.
And I think when you tell it in the moment, it's different because the emotion's high. I just shot this deer, just had this encounter, I hung this incredible set. Right, or oh my gosh, my kid just shot their first doe.
Right.
And when you share that, it connects the community.
Yep.
And it doesn't have to have these big gaps. I mean, I grew up in Maryland. I don't know if most people don't know that.
Mm-hmm.
So this show,
I Wikipedia stalked you.
Wikipedia.
So this show I used to come to as a little kid.
Okay.
Right? So I mean, every year,
not that far.
It was an hour drive. Right. I look forward to coming to this show. So this is how I cut my teeth.
Yep.
So you look back, I didn't have social media. What did you have? You had the Harrisburg show.
Right. Yep.
Right. It wasn't called the Great American Out There. We call it the Harrisburg show.
Yep. The Harrisburg show. Yep.
And so you just waited. For this show, because this is where then I could come see things and experience it as a little kid.
Right.
And now, kids can experience what we do through their devices, which is phenomenal.
Yep.
And I think speaking of the show, the opportunity, I remember coming here when I was little and getting to meet Jim Shockey. It's like, I can drive my dad can drive me 3 hours and we can go meet Jim Shockey, who's doing all these cool things in the Yukon and pick his brain. And I think the people in the outdoor industry, much like yourself, are just like the greatest people. You know what I mean? It's not like your sports celebrities that you meet, you're down to earth people, soul of the earth people who just like doing what you do.
Yeah, we're blessed to do what we do. I mean, the concept around Hunt Masters is I'm not the Hunt Master. I take you on the journey like an Anthony Bourdain would take you on a food journey to introduce you to Hunt Masters.
Yep.
And they can be guides, outfitters, stale crackers of the world, right? Other people outside the industry. And so me, I'm just trying to be a window to the outdoors to get people interested to do what they do.
Right. That's cool.
Whether it's interested in muzzle loading, right? Or rifle hunting or bow hunting or crossbows or whatever. It's just participate in the outdoors.
Right, and just bringing it into people's homes and people who wouldn't even know who a stale cracker is. By the way, stale cracker was a Louisiana state trooper. Not a lot of people know that.
That's correct.
I believe for 19 years, right?
19 years, that's what he said. We got to meet him at the ATA show and do a little bit with him on our Instagram,
That's funny.
But we got to wonder.
Yeah.
Yep.
Hey, all part of the show, right?
Yep.
I mean, is
special guest.
If we don't get that get going here, then we're going to run into a lot of that. But
that's funny.
Going back to Hunt Masters and you said you like featuring some outfitters and when you go on your elk hunt. I remember I just watched the Basin Bulls, which was an incredible episode. Yeah. I don't think there's anything better than watching bull bugle in 4K. But what I want to talk about today is, we grew up, cut our teeth on whitetail hunting. We're big whitetail hunters, and I think the part about your show that I love is your education, beside your storytelling, is your education on how to do whitetail management. Yeah. And I brought my dad here today, and I know that he's going to listen in on this because he's like, let's ask ask Gregg about whitetail management. So what I want to do is kind of, for our listeners, can you take me through the year? What would, if you're not at the show, what are you doing right now to prepare for this coming season?
Great questions. First of all, I'm blessed because I've got 10 lifetimes, 20 lifetimes of experience that most people won't have for a couple of reasons. One is because I'm doing it for 150 days a year.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Hanging tree stands, putting food plots in, habitat management, running a chainsaw. I spend more time on the preparation side by 4 to 1 versus hunting.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And then the other thing is the community we're all in with the Lee Lakoskis and the Don Kiskis and the Bill Winkies. And you hear, and we, the Mark Drews, we compare notes.
Right.
What's the new trends? How do we fight EHD? Jeff Lindsay will call me, oh my gosh, I'm hunting this big buck. Really, what's going on? He goes, well, I'm thinking about doing this and that. And have you thought? So we all strategize and talk and learn together. And then so through that, you get this PhD every year.
Right.
And you would think you hit this point that you know everything. It's totally predictable. I'm telling you, every whitetail is different.
Yep.
Everyone's got a personality, and everyone has, every deer has its own way. Now, every deer is killable.
Yeah.
100%. But that doesn't mean you can kill them if you don't know what you're doing. Right. And that's the puzzle, right? And to me, the greatest accomplishment is when you can, like this year with Rover, is I relocated that deer's home range. Think about that.
Right.
Question.
7.5 years old.
How'd you do that?
Relocated his home. You got to come to the seminar.
Yeah. Greg's got a great seminar. We'll talk about that at the end tomorrow. You might get one-on-one time with Greg, as long as you don't want to see former President Trump.
Exactly. Or maybe I'll just go on stage with Trump and then talk
there
about
you go.
it. We'll just tell.
Get Trump to talk about how he killed his last buck.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Or at least Donald Jr.
Yeah, he could. But to answer your question, so right now, I'm going to tell everybody this. If you're not in the woods as many days as possible right now, you're making a mistake.
And I've heard that a lot of big bucks are killed in February and March.
They're killed in February and March because all of the sign. So when you build a hunt strategy, okay, you're building it off of historical information, historical trail camera pictures, historical rubs, scrapes, their activity, where they fed. And we all know that things change throughout the year. Mm-hmm. How you hunt them in October is different than November. Whether there's 13 phases or not, Mark,
right.
Drury, there's a lot of phases, right?
Right.
And he's 100% right. But all that sign is sitting there. His antlers are laying in the woods. His rubs are still on the trees. His runs are still there. The bedding grounds are all established. So that footprint is
all coming together.
Right.
Yeah.
So and when I say you walk through the woods, you don't stomp.
Right.
It's like you still hunt.
Yep.
Okay.
I'm looking at this tree. I'm looking at that tree. I'm looking at browse. What browse have they eaten? Because you can see it.
Yeah. Right.
And then you start putting those pieces together and go, okay, if I'm going to kill Rover in October, what's my strategy? If I want to get him on video in velvet in August, what do I need to do?
Because you were thinking ahead constantly when you were going after Rover. So
so I'll tell you how far ahead I was thinking. 3 years ahead.
Yeah, right.
So so I try. You don't always get there. In the Midwest, and I can put the Mid-Atlantic in this region because we're kind of at the same latitude. 7.5 is their prime age.
Right.
Now, am I telling you to let your deer go to 7.5? It's situational dependent.
Right.
Who your neighbors are, what the situation. Do you back up at the public? Are you hunting public?
Right.
So, I would say most people, if you can kill a 4-year-old deer, you've done something amazing.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
Because they're really, really smart at 4. But my home farm, where I've got a bigger area and I know my neighbors, right? So I play chess with my neighbors all the time because they're hunting my deer.
Yep.
It's free. It's free range, and they kill. So my neighbors kill 50% of my bucks every year.
Yeah. Now, do you for your neighbors? While we're on that, do you each have an understanding of what each of you are going after?
We got an understanding. If it comes across the line, they're shooting it. That's the only understanding that they've got.
That's about what I have right now too. There's a few guys in my area that are like, okay, let them go, let them grow.
Right.
But then there's other guys that are like, they're hungry.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They're hungry, and they have to kill a buck every year.
Yeah.
Or else they're not hunting.
Right.
Which for me, it's not like that. I hunted this buck Harley all year. I had a couple longer shots at him. I didn't take it, and I don't regret it because now he's going to be 5.5 next year.
Yep.
And for us, like you said, in my area, 4.5-year-old deer is a big deer. Yeah. In PA, I don't have the land to keep them on, and then Jared, he hunts all public.
Yeah, mostly,
so it's even tougher for him.
Yeah, it's all public. You'd consider it all public.
Right.
You either have a piece of private or 50 guys are hunting it, or I'm hunting like deep, like timber and public land, state forest. But
so it's entirely different. But for where Rover was living, so 3 years old, he was mainframe 9, about 18 inches wide.
Right.
So pretty special deer.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Most people would have shot him at 3. At 4, he blew up, and I have all this for the presentation, because you really have to see it. Split eye guard, split 2, split 3. I mean, he's already in the 160s at 4 years old.
That's wild. Yeah.
So I'm like, he's got the freak gene.
Yeah.
But we called him Rover because when he would hit the rut, he would blow up every single camera one day.
Right.
Like, you talk about stress.
Oh, yeah.
It's like ping, 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 ping. I'm
just
like
all over
with neighbors with a hairy trigger finger.
Correct.
Yeah.
And so he was going into 2 of the neighbors as much as he was on me. So I'm like, oh my gosh. But as they get older, everyone knows their core range typically shrinks, especially if you give them everything they want.
Yeah.
Right? You give them the food, you give them the water, you give them the cover. Really, you give them security, you give them women, right?
Right.
And compartmentalize it.
What kills most guys.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Yep.
But it was the planting of the trees, the planting of the warm season grasses, because I said, okay, if he runs the gauntlet and survives till 6 or 7, it's going to shrink. So what do I need to do? I need to go in and do my timber stand improvement. So I go burn all the woods, get the leaf litter, go in with a chainsaw, selectively cut the mature trees that I could sell, hinge cut the rest. Okay, here's where you're going to bed. And by the way, I'm going to relocate you. I'm not going to cut your bedding. I'm going to move you 1,000 yards to bed here. And I moved them.
That's
and then,
incredible.
okay, now that I've got you here, I'm going to change where you feed. Because I know what you like to eat. Because now as you progress, I know what you like to eat at certain times of the year.
Yep.
And I know how you like to rut in your rut zones. So I go create those around his bedding. And then I look at access. I'm like, okay, if he slips through the cracks in it's late season, how do I get in? Because he's a smart deer. He lets all the other deer come out.
Yeah, right.
Before he pokes his head out.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, okay, now I gotta move you north another 500 yards for access, so I don't blow the deer out, so I can get in and out and hunt you every single day, because he doesn't ever do the same thing 2 days in a row.
That's wild. Yeah.
And you know what? It all came together. That's the joy for me. Is
I was going to say
together.
how I don't even know how to phrase it. I'm going to use like a double positive. I think how much more awesome was it for you to harvest Rover compared to other deer, or maybe even other animals you went and been outfitted for?
I would say he and the mule deer buck are two of the top ones. One, because the Rover, I created something, and he evolved and he changed and he did what I thought I could do to wildlife.
Right.
And obviously, you're not just benefiting one deer.
Yep.
You're benefiting
as a whole. Yeah.
As a whole, a lot. And I'm like, oh my gosh, where'd this deer come from?
Right.
Like I remember my neighbor who lives to the north of me during the summer, because we trade pictures.
Right.
I put it all on social media. Right. People go, oh, why'd you put your big deer on?
Right.
They're hunting my lines anyway. They're hunting across the street.
They know.
Like,
yeah.
they
know.
know.
Going to know. Right.
They know,
Yep.
They know what the deer are. And so he's sharing his pictures, and
we were
I
talking
told him
about
I'm
that.
not posting Harley at all because I don't want all my neighbors to come in on me. So.
No, you don't do it on public.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly.
But so he shares a picture of a deer I named Claw later. He had double split brows, really good 5-year-old buck that he had in velvet. And we're talking. I'm thinking to myself, oh, he's in trouble.
Yeah.
And I didn't say anything. And so he comes over first week in November. He goes, man, have you seen Claw? Or not Claw? He didn't know I call him Claw. Have you seen that double split brow buck? And I'm like, man, I haven't seen him in a while, which was true.
Yeah.
2 days is a while.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep. You got to tell the little white lies every now and then.
In dog years, 2 days is a lot longer, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. And of course, he's watching this podcast, dog cussing me. But what it is by creating this habitat for Rover, then when they shelled their beans and they put pressure, on their farm, and they're good hunters, that deer just he shifted over.
Right.
So you ended up getting these bonus bucks by focusing on one deer.
And that makes sense. That's perfect. How you can actually take that and change the feed from like where he's, you dialed him in on what he liked to eat and stuff, and you actually move that by, you probably just shortcut like where he was feeding in the first place, and then he had to move to the place where he was getting his new Big Mac.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? So it's the same thing. So that's awesome. Yeah.
That is awesome. My wheels are turning. I'm going to be messaging you about Harley here.
Hey, but that to me is the enjoyment, is putting some. So I may harvest. So we harvest 3 deer, 3 bucks on my property this past year. My daughter did, and then Jeremy from Grizzly Cooler shot one, and then I shot one. So 3 bucks were taken off of my property, right? And then I would say I lost 20 bucks to neighbors.
Wow.
And then
what else? What am I recruiting? So in other words, what I take out of the herd is fractional.
Right.
What I provide for other hunters and for the resources is exponential.
Yeah, exponential. Yeah, right.
And then what about EHD? I know you had a lot of issues with it this year.
I lost half my herd.
That's
wild.
a
tough pill to swallow.
So So the real story on all of it is Rover was going to be number 2. Splitty was going to be number 1.
Wow.
Splitty was 7.5. Rover 7.5. So I got 2 deer at 7.5 coming into the year. Splitty ended up scoring 179 and 7/8.
Yeah.
And I know that because I found him dead in the pond the first day of hunting season.
I think I saw that. Yeah.
I think I did too.
So that was heartbreaking. Then because of the drought, Rover wasn't in his prime antler-wise.
Right.
Prime body size, 7.5. Right. Age prime, the antlers, he regressed a little bit.
Right.
And I'm like, okay. Then had another fringe deer we named Raptor. And so I'm like, I'm going to hunt Raptor. Well, then the neighbor kills Raptor 15 minutes into gun season.
Oh, dang.
And I'm like, okay, hit the reset button.
Right.
Right. And I'm like, okay, Rover.
It's your
You and I are you and I are dancing
it's
to
a
the
game.
end of the end of the season, and but you look back. So I had him opening day Rover of gun season in the timber, right as the sun's coming up, running does coming down right where I logged. I called it the money tree because it was actually a double split white oak that were both sides were 21 inches around. So I mean, it's like $2,000 in timber.
right. Yeah.
And they came off a shared base, and the logger paints it. And you'll probably see this in the video, right? He paints the tree to cut it, and I'm looking at this. I'm like, so this ridge comes down, this ridge comes down. If a hinge cut up there, okay, he's going to drop through the bottom. I'm like, you can't cut that tree.
Don't cut that yet, yeah.
Because that's $2,000. There's 2 trees. And I'm like, yeah, but I need this one for back covering and this one for my stand to shoot this bottom and that ridge top.
That's funny.
He goes, but it's $2,000. And I'm like, I know, but I can't grow this tree.
Yeah. Right.
And so literally he comes under the stand, and I'm hunting with my my Colt Anaconda.
Okay.
Right. And I hear bark, 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 and I grab my gun. You know what they sound like.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
When he's talking, it's like you and I talking. I recognize your voice.
Yep, right.
And here he comes. Like literally, I had to move my left foot back. He comes right under the stand. I'm asking him, "You on him? You on him?" He goes, "I don't have light. I don't have light. I don't have light." I'm like, "What do you mean you don't have light?" He goes, "I don't have light." I'm like, "Light for high speed or no light to kill?" He goes, "No kill." And then he stops under the stand, panting like, okay, do I go up this ridge or go down that creek? And I'm looking at him, and he goes, and I'm like, let him go.
Oh, man. Yeah.
Yeah. Ouch.
That's running cameras.
Yeah.
Yep. That's filming your hunt.
That's the game we play.
Right.
It is.
And that's a whole another thing in amongst itself. Because that's like to capture everything like that on story when you're telling something like that, and it's probably obviously years in advance where you're planning different things out like that, even stories. Because that was one of the questions I wanted to ask you is how many like stories in your mind for each different deer. I know things may pop up randomly, like if a deer gets killed like on your neighbor's property and you have to switch shifts, but how many stories do you have like accumulating in your mind over?
So I'm going to end my seminar that I'm going to give today on. So we're going to go all through the story. I'm using Rover as a backdrop on land management.
Right.
And walking people through what I did and what they can do. I mean, all the way down to how many pounds of fertilizer to put on an acre type of thing.
Nice.
But I'm going to end showing a video of Badger, who is 8.5, it'll be 9.5 next year.
Wow.
And I brought 3 years of his sheds. I just found, so he's got, off of his right side, he's got this cool flyer that comes off of his G2.
Huh.
And I have 3 years of 6, 7, and I just found it last week.
Oh, no way.
8 years old, all with the same flyer.
Holy mackerel.
Here's the video of him. He's going to be 9. Here's 3 years of shit. You can come up and touch him. You guys can come up and see him. And now I got to go create his world.
Right.
So to answer your question, now it's – but what's interesting with him is I would have killed him 2 years ago, but the other hierarchy of the mature bucks pushed him off my property.
Yeah, right.
Oh wow, okay.
Because that's when that's the thing when you're taking out a mature buck that you allow that the less mature or older or the younger ones that are less potential at that time to move in to that property.
So to kill this deer, Badger, which will be next year, has required 2 years of hammering these bully mature bucks.
Right.
Yep.
That makes
these we call, I mean, some were like 80-inch, 90-inch bullies. Like
Right.
I'm not talking like cull bucks, some of them.
Right.
Right.
And then, you know, some were trophies, but 2 years of just hammering them to create an opening.
Mm-hmm. To allow them
So
to come
he
in.
spent years 1 to 6 living on me. Then he got in a fight, got injured, had a giant cyst on him, almost died. And when he got that, he's like, I want nothing to do with this
area. Yeah.
this area.
Huh.
So
Right.
then he went to the neighbors, but he would come back late season because I had the food.
Gotcha. And then he could be safe there.
Correct. So the light went off when he got hurt and went missing, and then he came back in December. You know, then I got with my farm manager Rob, who helps. You know, he and I execute everything together. I'm like, okay, let's make a list.
Right.
He goes, make a list of what? I said, all these deer that are pushing him off. Who thumped them? When did it happen?
Hit list.
And so we created a hit list.
Yep.
But it took 2 years now to create a gap.
Yeah. Right.
So
That's
now,
wild.
yeah. So now I'm trying to bring him back home.
Yep.
It's like whitetail PhD. I like
Chess.
this.
Yeah.
I
it's
love
just
this.
It
moving
is.
everything around. Yeah. It's so cool.
When you were, when did you start creating that new home area for Rover?
3 years ago.
Well, I meant like what time of the year? Was it this time of the year or?
Yeah. So what we did, we started off with planting the warm season grasses.
Okay.
Okay. So in the fall, I went and I sprayed. So it used to be an old tillable field. Well, I shouldn't say old. It was a production tillable field. And I waited till the rotation was into beans because it's the easiest to clean up. You know, made sure everything was sprayed and killed in October. So that way when I worked the ground in the spring, I didn't have a lot of competing, you know,
Like weeds.
forbs
yeah,
and weeds
right.
and all of this. So work the ground up, you know, sprayed and made sure everything that regrew when you work it up, of course, you fluff up all the native seeds, killed those off, broadcast my warm season grasses, then allow those to get established for a year because there you're mowing, right?
Yeah.
'Cause that's the easiest way to establish warm season grasses year one.
Mow it.
Is mow it because it takes the first year, the majority of the seed is growing its root, growing down.
Right.
Okay, so it's growing that root stock, and a little bit grows. And because only a little bit grows on the top, you have so many weeds that compete with it.
Right.
But I don't really like to spray. You can spray atrazine on it. You can knock some of those back. But I really like to just mow it and keep that competition because it will outcompete all your other cool seasons.
Yeah.
Okay.
So then year 2, now that it's established, go in and plant 6,000 trees. So create structure inside the grasses.
Okay.
And
That's going to hold it.
that way, as they get taller, they shade out the grasses, so they create pods. So think of it this way: if I've got this big ocean of grass, the deer are going to bed in it. But unless there's like a little hump or little ridge, like how many times have you, like when you're even on public land, when you find a deer, you jump a deer,
Yeah.
his back's against something, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Always.
Always. Yeah.
A blowdown.
Yep. Brush.
Uh,
Hillside.
Just a
like
little
li-
depression.
Yeah.
Always. Their
Yep.
back's always against something.
Yep.
So until those trees get big enough, I'll go at Christmas time, and I'll go knock on the doors. I know everybody. Hey, can I have your Christmas tree?
Yeah.
Why do you want my Christmas tree?
Yep. I do that
Well,
in my backyard.
So it's on my
Yeah.
it's on the curb.
Dude,
Like,
yep.
why do you want it? Don't worry about it.
Yep.
And then I'll go create that structure in the grasses.
Yep.
Because now they're going to end up. So I'm like, okay, they're going to come off of this ridge here. They're going to cross. They're going to drink at the creek. They're coming the grasses. I'm going to stage him up here based off of the wind. And then he's going to play the wind to go feed over here. So you create that structure. And I can do that artificially with the Christmas trees and then natively as they grow.
Yep.
So you're using the Christmas trees in the meantime while your trees become mature.
And I also use it as a way to nurse or protect the other trees that are growing.
Yeah.
Because I don't know about the deer around here, but
They're rubbing up and everything. They're just
yeah,
showing young trees.
they see it. They see a little pine tree like this.
Yep.
Oh, there's a play toy.
Yep.
Yeah.
Knock it down.
They're hammering
yep.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Same thing. Same with apple trees or anything in
Right.
our area. They just destroy them.
But it's the same thing with hinge cutting, right? A lot of times, yes, you want to open the canopy to allow the sunlight to come down because deer are herbivores, right? They eat herbaceous plants. 70% of their diet comes from native browse, not our food plots.
Right.
And or not even our ag fields. Certain times a year, obviously, but in the course of a whole year, 70% in the timber. So you want to create those openings, but where you lay that down for that buck to bed is just as important as creating sunlight to the forest floor. So understanding what species you cut, where the tree is going to land, how you're going to create those little pods for them. You don't want to go in there like a hurricane and just
Wipe everything down.
blow everything down.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So that's, and all that was done for one deer that then just benefited 100 deer.
Right. Yeah, you were focused on him, but everything you were doing benefited your entire herd.
Yep.
Dramatically.
Right. And now that Rover's gone, I mean, have you seen Badger start to use that yet?
He uses a different part of the farm.
Okay.
So he isn't, but now that deer I call Claw. So this is interesting. You guys have probably seen this because it's the true on public land, highly pressured leases, doesn't matter. When you have this hierarchy of mature bucks, right? You got your 1.5 years at the bottom, 2.5, 3.5, 5.5 plus at the top. They're not a lot.
Right.
Okay. When you pluck one off the top, right, out of the dominant structure, somebody replaces them that day.
Oh, yeah.
Immediately.
Yep.
Whether it's elk, moose, deer, mule deer.
Right. Yeah.
Pronghorns, doesn't matter.
Yeah. Huh.
So when I plucked him out of there, Claw was on the fringe, and I was like, huh.
And he just came exposed.
I was going to say, how soon after taking Rover did you start seeing him show up?
So here's I have this on video. So here's a real, I'll tell you 100% how this works. There was a deer called, just blanked on his name, Nosy, okay? And he was like one of the best deer for rubbing trees. Like he was super, super aggressive, okay? So he kept Rover on the fringe. So 2 years ago, when I shot Nosy, Rover stepped over his dead body to come into the field.
No way. So that quick.
So literally shoot him.
They know.
Shoot him, and we're doing reversals, right? Doing all the cutaways and all the cool, Hollywood stuff, right?
Here he comes.
And here he comes. And he's never walked out in that field before. Now he's like, big man's gone.
Yeah, I'm king.
And literally he came from where
That's
Nosy died
Right.
in the ditch. So literally he had to pass him to come into the field.
Yeah.
And when he came in, and you can tell when a deer comes in whether it's just like a dog.
Yeah, right.
When a dog comes in the room, you can tell whether they're dominant or whether they're submissive or they're in uncharted territory at a park and be like, I got to figure out who's the boss here.
Right.
He came in like, I'm the boss.
Huh. It's funny. We went up and hunted in 2019 in New Brunswick for spring bears, and they put me on a bait with this bear we called the Judge because the Judge used to sit in that stand. And I sat there for the first 3 nights. I never saw a bear, but I could hear the teeth chopping. And the third night, a little bear came in. He was there 10 minutes, but he was nervous the whole time, and he left. Here comes the big bear. I shoot him. He goes 15 yards. He death moans and dies.
Yep.
I saw 6 bear in the next half hour. It was incredible. It was just like the floodgates open.
Yep.
Like they must have known that was his death moan.
Running everybody
he's like,
off. Yeah.
He's gone.
Yeah.
So you saying that just reminded me of that story. I'm like, oh, that must have been what happened. Like,
And great analogy, right? And that's just a hierarchy of wildlife.
Huh.
But to think about what you can do, because we get focused a lot on who we want to put on the wall, as opposed to what's right to manage your property.
Right. Yeah. Right.
And sometimes
that's a great quote right there.
Makes perfect sense. Yeah.
Yep. I mean, we had a deer called Kickstand. We didn't kill him till he was 10 and a half.
Whew. Wow.
So think about this. He terrorized my farm till 10 and a half.
Right.
So in 1 year, okay, he physically killed 3 deer on my property, including a 182-inch 4-year-old.
Jeez. 4-year-old.
4-year-old.
Oh my gosh, that's the freak gene right there.
Like physically, so he killed Jack, the racetrack 9, and he killed Axel, which physically gored him,
right,
killed him, and that's only the 3 that I know of.
Right.
I mean, you would hit, you're like, hey, you want to see him? He's like, you want to see Kickstand? Whack! Slap the horns together, and he come boiling over that ridge and look. Now he was smart. He may not always commit, but you could always see him. But trying to hunt him,
pull him in. Yeah. Huh.
So I mean, but it took us 3 years to kill that deer, and as soon as we killed him, to your story,
floodgates.
Just started open. That's crazy.
That's wild. Yeah.
That deer must have had a ton of testosterone to be that aggressive.
Yeah. And when he was 9, he literally had 2 cow horns, 2 main beams, 2 brow tines, and a little flyer.
Huh. That was it.
That was it.
That's all he needed.
And
that
then we
was the
got
weapon.
it. Then when he was 10, he got a little branch. I mean, literally like a 70 or 80 inch deer.
Huh.
And of course, you and I would see him. And his bases are this big, but
Yeah,
you and I
right.
would see him and be like, that's a cool old buck.
Mm-hmm.
As opposed to, he got to go.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, because he's got 2 swords on top of his head.
Right.
Wow. That's incredible.
That's wild, yeah.
And he was a dirty fighter too. Because I would because he was smart. He watched 2 bucks coming in, and he'd come in and just T-bone one of them and just roll them. So he
knew how to do it.
Yeah, he was. I should have named him Mike Tyson or something.
Should have, yeah.
That's funny.
That's incredible. We have a few more minutes here. I wanted to touch on a couple more things. One, I didn't know this till just the other day, but I saw you did the quick bites with Michael Weidel.
Yep.
And I didn't know that the 2 of you were on the range, and you were there the day that the bone collector started.
Yes.
Which is just a crazy story because Michael Weidel, is obviously really big in the industry. Yeah. And I messaged you. I'm like, my college bathroom was full of bone collector stuff, and you're part of that.
Yep.
And Wildcom.
Yep. Yeah. So Michael's a great friend and one of the best ambassadors for our industry because he's always out there preaching. I call him the preacher, right?
Right.
And because he loves the sport, wants to get people into it, and he keeps it simple. I just want to have fun, hang out with my buddies.
Yep.
Right now, he's managing farms now.
Yeah.
Right. So he's learning.
Yep. Yeah.
But,
that's fun.
Yeah. So he was with Real Tree Outdoors. Obviously, road trips.
Yep.
Benchmark show that changes the industry.
He
So
was
I
a
think
cameraman, I think, for them for a while, and then moved in.
Exactly. So, Wildcom had just formed, and we had Lee and Tiffany, and we were doing work for a lot of other, Don and Candy Kiske and other people in the industry. And he said, I want to go out on my own. He said, can you help me? Can you represent me? I'm like, okay, what do you want to do? Well, if I keep road trips, maybe I'll do a show hunting in Africa.
That's not you, Michael.
And I'm
No,
like,
you got to be in Booger Bottom.
I'm like, I don't think, and he's kicking around. I'm like, Michael, just be you.
Right.
Just film you, be you,
Yep.
And of course, we're talking. He goes, he said, all I want is just people to understand the brotherhood.
There you go.
Ooh.
So he threw out this brotherhood. So we're literally at the range in New Hampshire, shooting the Triumph muzzleloader at the time. And I think it was like 2007. And he said, he goes, man, I'm going to collect a lot of bone with this muzzleloader. And I said,
That's crazy how things come together like
It's
that.
I mean,
just-
he just spits gold nuggets.
Oh, yeah, right.
Yeah.
He's just one of those phenomenal guys. and I'm like, oh, you're going to be a bone collector? And it was like 2 Roger Rabbit eyes.
Yeah.
Yep.
And he goes, that's it.
That's it. Yep. Just click.
He's and
I
then-
love the Roger Rabbit reference.
Oh,
too.
yeah. Yep.
and he goes, I got it. He goes, the Brotherhood of the Bone Collector.
Yeah.
And then literally we're
Created a community.
trade community.
Yep.
And
That's
then,
incredible.
And that's how, it literally, just started at a gun range, just talking.
Yeah,
And then, but
that's
when it's
wild.
right, like when he said it,
Oh yeah.
You knew it.
You know that's him.
That's
that's what it has to be. Yeah.
I've been in the hunting and I grew up on Real Tree road trips like a lot of people did.
Yep.
I never knew that story until literally 3 or 4 days ago, and it's just and then we're interviewing you. I'm like, it was meant to be.
Yep.
It was meant to be.
Yeah, it was. And he lived up to that. He did create a brotherhood, obviously, with T-Bone and Nick.
Yeah.
And their personalities, and everywhere they went, he always celebrated the animal and other people.
Yeah.
He never celebrated himself.
Right.
Yep.
And I think that's why the industry is so endeared to him.
Oh yeah.
I think so.
Yeah,
He's a great ambassador, like you said. He's just
everybody can relate to all those guys. I mean, and they're so genuine too. We got to hang out with them for just a short stint at in Indy, and when they had it there last at the ATA show, and just like you and everybody else we meet, they're so down to
Nick
earth.
Munt talked to me for 20 minutes about that. Have you ever seen the mule deer hunt where he walks right up on
I
it
know.
in the field? I go, how the hell did you do that?
I know.
You know what I mean? And he took me through the whole thing, and he's just so nice, and I'm sure he's got a ton of commitments. But the fact he took the time to explain that to me, I'm like, he's like, dude, it's all about the wind.
Yeah.
Yep.
You got the wind in my favor, and I knew I could sneak up, and he'd be doing that little afternoon nap, and I knew I could get in there. I'm like, well, it was an incredible video.
I think he's part Indian.
Yeah.
I really
That's
do. Nick is one of the best Western hunters that I've seen.
Yeah,
I mean, he is. He can slip in on a deer, and he can execute with a bow when it comes time.
Yeah,
absolutely. I think all those guys. I mean, obviously,
yeah,
they do very well. They do very well for themselves.
Yeah.
The other thing on that Outdoor Bites is, Michael has 5 kids now, and he's gotten into it, and I think that's why he's maybe getting a little more into the farm. And I want to talk to you about that too. I got 2 little girls, and I know your girls are. My girls are 5 and 3. And our listeners have heard me tell the bug squash. I got one that'll squash a bug and laugh, and the other one will try and revive it. So I might get one. I might get
one of them's a hunter. Yeah,
I might get one hunter out of them.
Yeah.
But I know how have things changed for you as your girls have gotten older and they've gone into hunting.
So I've been blessed, with 3 girls who all love the outdoors. And since they were about 5, and I can show you pictures on the phone, they all shot bows and guns.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, and so it was natural we just go out in the backyard, right? We tried never to be inside. Like if we're home, we're cooking, we're grilling, let's go shoot the bows, right?
Yeah.
And we make it fun. We put balloons up, put playing cards, shoot those, turn the cards around, right?
Yep.
Play for prizes, and make them run down and run back and then shoot the bows to get their heart rate up.
Yep.
And but I said, hey, when you're 10, if you're interested in hunting, let me know. And then if you're not, that's okay. But they grew up 4-wheeler riding and being with Dad, hanging tree stands, and hanging cameras, and taking the weed whipper.
You're just building them up to that point, and they're like, obviously I want to go with you.
Right.
Yeah.
And then so then my oldest daughter, Sydney, when she turned 10, she said, okay, Dad, I want to go out. And then I think it was a week before the hunt was scheduled, she breaks her arm.
Oof.
So she has this blue cast on her right arm. And I'm like, honey, what do you want to do? She goes, I still want to go hunting, Dad. I want to go hunting. So we go out, and she kills her first deer with a muzzleloader.
Yep.
Right. And and I just remember, because I'm sitting next to her. It's a really cool setup, because you'll appreciate this. We wanted to get her natural reaction. So the cameraman stand was under hers, where the cameraman had to literally crawl and sit.
Yeah.
Now we're in a food plot, right?
Yep.
So Sydney's facing this way, cameraman is facing this way, I'm here, and then there's another cameraman in the stand filming us.
Yeah.
She is so excited. She was like, I want to get down. And she's trying to get her safety belt undone. I'm like, honey, just relax.
Yeah.
Right? We got this. I got to get down. And like literally, I think she would have jumped off that stand.
If she could have.
If she could have.
That's funny.
And then my middle daughter, Sienna, and then Savannah came. So they all at that 10 or 11. So then they used to hunt together. And then each one, because of sports, lifestyle, and all that, started hunting separately with me. And it's interesting, because my oldest daughter, she'll be here tomorrow.
Mm-hmm. Sad we missed her.
I know.
I
you guys will have to do a podcast just with her. She's a character.
Absolutely.
She loves to hunt with a vertical bow.
Okay.
Now, she's used muzzleloader, rifle, crossbow.
Yep.
So she's dedicated to that, because she loves to shoot her bow.
Right.
And then my middle daughter, Sienna, she loves to hunt with her friends.
Mm-hmm.
So if it's, hey, Dad, can I come hunting? Oh, can Maddie come?
Yep.
And I'm like,
I think I just saw on your Instagram she shot a buck. She was home from college. Wasn't a friend with her?
Right. Yeah. And then she went out and shot a buck.
Yep.
5 degrees outside. And then my youngest wants to do everything by herself. So so this year I'm flying home from 32 days straight whitetail hunting to come home for Thanksgiving, the only 4 days that I get off. And she's like, hey, Dad, I want to come hunting. I'm like, honey, I'm flying home.
Yeah.
Like
right.
I have 5 days home, and then I got to go back on the road. She goes, it's okay.
Right. I'll see you. I'll let you know if I get one.
You're 17.
Yeah, right.
And she goes, yeah?
Yeah.
So
awesome.
I parked my truck at the St. Louis, right? We just talked about St. Louis.
Yep.
The St. Louis airport, fly home, take her to the airport at 2 o'clock in the morning. She flies in, gets on the shuttle, gets my truck in St. Louis, right?
Huh.
And then drives to the grocery store, drives to Game Masters, gets her hunting license, goes out, gets her bow sighted in, got her pack all together, hunts 2 days, shoots a doe, dimes it, tracks it. Rob was around, so he helped, get it out, guts the whole thing herself. Next day goes out, shoots a buck on her own. Same thing, dimes the buck, finds the buck, drags the buck out, guts the buck. And then now she has 2 deer, skins them all out, puts all the meat in the grizzly cooler.
Man, that's
right?
awesome. Yep.
Drives to the airport, drops the truck off, flies home. I pick her up. like, oh, man, I had a great time and all this. I'm like, what was the toughest part about your hunt? And I'm thinking, the wind direction and where she hunts. She goes, man, cooking dinner every night.
Yeah. That's funny. That's good.
Yeah.
That's
So
good.
but she felt so validated,
Right.
you know, as an outdoorsman and a hunter
Yep.
that I can do this on my own.
Yep.
How did that make you feel?
Oh, I'm still telling the
cloud
story,
nine.
right? Like,
Yeah.
I tell that story 1,000 times this week.
Yep.
That or you shooting Rover?
I take that all day long.
I figured, yeah.
Yeah.
It's
So
just
the last day, you know, because I had tagged out in Illinois, like the day before ATA show, and then when I came back, Sydney was in camp, so I sat with her the last night of the season, and I was more nervous for her. All right. Keep the window closed and keep the heater down. We don't want the,
Right.
You know, I'm like, I want it to be great for them.
Yep. Just
Right.
perfect. Yeah.
Right. I'm not worried about me. Like when it comes, my world's my world, but
Yep.
to them, I want them to be successful.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
So wait till your kids get older.
well, you know I can because I just looked the other day and my 3-year-old, I'm like, why are you getting so tall? Like, stop it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But I am excited for that, and hopefully, you know, we can get them out there and shooting. I think my youngest, she's going to be she's got the killer instinct.
Yeah.
She's the one that has a maniacal laugh after
Yeah.
squatting.
Maniacal laugh.
She just looks at me and
Yeah,
she's
that's
like,
funny.
I like that, Dad.
Yeah.
I'm like, you're
I
right.
like that.
Yeah.
I'm going to get you some camo for Christmas.
Yeah.
But no. Well, I think that they're going to get the show started here
Yeah.
soon. I could literally talk to you
Yeah.
for like 8 more hours,
Yeah.
so I'll call you tonight.
Yeah. Hey, you know, call me when you get on Harley. We'll strategize.
Oh man. Yeah.
One last thing, an episode, and I want to give you credit for doing it because you know people nowadays are scared, and like us being cops, we get a little nervous with being too political. I want to give you a ton of credit for that episode you did called the MAGA Buck.
Yeah.
I thought that was so cool.
Yeah.
You know, obviously things didn't work out then.
Yeah.
But I think it'd be really cool if they showed that before Trump came out here tomorrow. At the Great
That
American
would
Outdoor
be,
Show.
yeah, that would
That'd be sweet.
Yeah.
You know, I tell people, whatever your beliefs are, okay, whether they're religious beliefs, political beliefs, whatever, is don't hide behind them.
Yeah.
Right.
Right? If you truly believe in your heart about something, and I believe in my core values,
Yep.
right? And I'm proud to stand up there. So I go sit on a plane next to somebody, and they go, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" Now I could make the Michael Waddell comment. Well, I kill for a living and business is good.
Yeah. Right.
That would be a Mike Waddell line, right?
Yep.
But no, I tell, hey, I'm in the outdoors industry. I got a hunting television show. Like I'm proud. I don't sit there and go, how are they going to react?
Yeah. Yep.
And you know, so I think we all can carry that badge of honor. What we do is honorable and rooted in tradition.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean,
you wanna
nobody
tell-
else would be here
I
if
know-
it wasn't for hunters. You know.
We're looking at each other, and we sheepishly, this won't allow us to do that.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
For right now.
Right.
I'm proud of what I believe in and what I do, but we have rules that we have to follow
Sure.
on certain things. Do you want to tell a story? Because
About
I
the
know we're
decoy?
yeah.
Yeah,
I know.
we were walking through the international airport from Pittsburgh and where we were flying from Minneapolis.
Yeah.
Yeah, we went
And,
from Minneapolis where, you know, the George Floyd thing happened. We
Yeah.
were hunting with Donnie Vincent up there.
I had a we were carrying home a big giant Dave Smith decoy.
Yeah.
And we're walking
The
through
big
the airport
strutter.
with a strutter decoy.
Donnie gave
And
it
I'm-
to us because we killed a bunch of birds with it.
Yeah,
He's
I'm
like, here, you guys take this.
Kicking it underneath the plane seat, but walking
Yeah.
through the airport, people were like, "What is that thing?" You know what I mean? Because
We
it had
came
like
up with a whole backstory.
Yeah, I was like, oh, we're working with National Geographic.
yeah.
This is where I put the camera on this thing, and then half the people I told it was my emotional support turkey, and like just making
That's
shit
really
up, you know.
funny.
But yeah, it was hilarious.
The funny part was we got on the plane in Chicago to fly back to Pittsburgh. They're like, it won't fit. It won't fit. You gotta check it. I'm like, you're not taking our Donnie Vincent, Dave Smith decoy
Right.
and putting it underneath this plane. How about the pilots took and removed their luggage and put it under the plane, and they stored it up with them?
That's cool.
It was so awesome. Now that was under the guys that they thought we worked for National Geographic.
yeah, right. I was like, that's where the camera mounts on it and everything.
We
they were loving
documented.
it.
I don't know if you saw any of the pictures of us
that's
knuckleheads
hilarious.
going through the airport, but Dave Smith's entire shop was
Yeah, they
loving
were
it.
loving
They're
it.
like, you are killing all of us. I'm like,
Brought it into Pittsburgh, put the Pittsburgh Pirates cap on it.
yeah. It was
yeah,
pretty cool.
we just took it everywhere with us.
Oh my God, that's awesome.
But Greg, thank you so much for doing this, man. I know it was 2 years in the making. We missed you there at ATA show a couple years ago, and it was I walked right up to you at ATA. And I'm like, Matt Steele, Blueline Bowhunters. We've been missing each other forever.
We got to do this. Yeah.
I remember Jake Powers is like, Greg isn't feeling well. He's not going to be able to make it. But this has been 2 years in the making. It was well worth the wait. And thank you so much for it.
Let's do it again next year. I'll be back at the show.
Yep,
I'm sure you guys will have some more stories, and I'm sure we'll. Then we can tell the conclusion of Badger too.
Yeah,
that sounds great.
Link up, absolutely.
Yeah.
But hey, if anybody obviously is out there, come to this Harrisburg show, whether this year or whatever, because this is true hunting culture here.
Absolutely, 100%. Just we've used it a lot on our podcast lately, but like-minded people.
Yeah.
And it's really nice to be able to come here, feel comfortable, and be with like-minded people. So
no doubt.
But where can people find you, Greg?
So obviously, Instagram, all the social media handles, just type in Gregg Ritz Huntmasters. And you guys will find me. And then obviously I have a YouTube, and then of course on the Outdoor Channel.
Huntmasters.
Sunday nights at 8:30. So year 22 coming up.
Prime time spot, man. Now, Greg, thanks so much, brother. We really appreciate it.
Thank you guys.
And we will we'll catch you guys next time on the Blueline Bowhunters podcast. One last big thank you to Traditions for letting us use their booth, as we have everyone standing off on the side.
Yeah, they're ready.
So we'll let them get to work. Thanks again, Greg. Appreciate it, brother.
Thanks, guys.
Check out the Blueline Bowhunters on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, or their website, www.bluelinebowhunters.com.
You can try to hide, you can try to run,